Hello, friends. Welcome to the first episode of the Equestrian Lifestyle. I'm Megan Robinson, also the owner of the Movement Connection. And I was told by multiple people for years, actually, that I should either write a book or start a podcast. I'm not an avid podcast listener, in all honesty. I don't know why. I don't know what that is. I don't know if it's my attention span or I talk to people for a living all day. So I appreciate silence, and moments of silence throughout my day. I don't know what it is, but my husband loves them. He often has them on while he's working. So I get little tastes of them, but I can't say that I'm a podcast expert. But I named this first episode A Little Taste because it's just me solo. I'm super excited about some of the guests that I have lined up to come on here and chat a lot about horses, but also a lot about life. And I have different avenues to pull from, different life experiences, even though I'm only in my early 30s, which you ask me on any given day, I feel like I've been alive for so much longer than with all of the um experiences that I've had, all the stuff that I've gone through. 30 doesn't sound like it gives it justice. um so yeah, I wanted to give you a little taste of things that you can expect from this podcast. A lot of it will be horses. A lot of it will be horses, and I have numerous experiences with different avenues of horses. I I've gone through so many different like phases of um, approaches and beliefs with horses, and worked in lots of different avenues, from a therapeutic riding standpoint to growing up on my grandparents' farm and photos of me when I was 2 sitting on gorgeous Clydesdales, no tack and no helmet and no safety. Um, but yeah, just different avenues and different life experiences, and the fact that I very much owe my will to live to the horse that I get to now call mine. Um, so today is just a little intro on me and what you can expect from here. And um, I don't know if I would say this is my communication style. Sitting here by myself with a monologue is not my usual communication style. Um, but you might be able to pick up on some of my quirks and see if it flows with you. Um, So I've been owning my own business for over 10 years now. I am in more of the fitness industry that has turned into a little bit more kind of rehab specialist, movement specialist, and then I've connected that with my love of horses. So I am a certified Pilates instructor through Stop Pilates, and kind of combined my love of horses and Pilates and started a Pilates for equestrian class over 10 years ago. And then recent years, like last 5 years, have kind of deep dived into that a little bit more, to more equestrian biomechanics and working with clients well mounted and being able to pinpoint some of the inconsistencies through their biomechanics, um, what functions well, what doesn't function well, is there pain. And then recently I started my level 3 apprenticeship with Kat from Ridewell Performance, who also has a podcast, and I'm hoping to have her on as a guest for sure. But we've integrated more biomechanics. But one of the things that has been so cool for me learning through her is how to integrate some of the somatics into it too. I see the bug. Welcome to my ADHD. Not diagnosed, but um, it's in there. So it's been really, really fun working to add in some of that thematics into it. I want to complete my level 3 work before I really get into that with clients, but playing around with that for myself, because I would absolutely classify myself as a sometimes anxious rider, sometimes cautious rider, sometimes let rock this rider. Depends on the day. But I never reach out of cautious rider. I have some very brave friends that I just am in awe in, and sometimes wish that I could let myself do that. And then other times I'm okay that I protect myself and my horse. But with that love of equestrians, like I said, I've been riding since I was 2, took lessons for a long time. Um, kind of fell out of it a little bit in high school, had some other things going on. That's kind of when I fell in love um, with fitness in a little bit of a back way, more so fueled through an eating disorder, which is another area that um, I feel really passionately about, and will likely chat about that further as well for anyone who can relate. But horses I got back into, both of actually my whole life is based off of one individual, which it would be really cool to have her on here actually. But one individual hooked me up with Pilates. I was working at a Good Life at the time, and she had come in, and I asked how her day was, and she said she had just come from Pilates and then was coming in for cardio. And afterwards, she did Pilates, and I started working out in that studio, and then became an instructor and worked in that studio. And then she also introduced me to a therapeutic riding stable in our area called Sari. And I had just had my second kidney transplant, and I am realizing now that this is jumping around a little bit because my life story is a little complicated. But I just had my second kidney transplant. Put a pin there. We'll come back. And was looking for a place to get back into riding that might be safe for me. So therapeutic riding stable made sense. I applied to be a rider there initially, and then found out how long the wait list was. And I am an individual not known for my patience per se. So it was like, okay, what can I do to get in and just be around the horses? So started volunteering there. Slowly worked my way into an instructor role as a volunteer instructor, as well as an exercise rider, working to help kind of be that horse's advocate and make sure that they're getting what they need so that they can continue to do their job well, whether that be some extra love, some extra TLC, keeping them physically fit. And I like immediately fell in love with just the whole concept and working with riders with um, various disabilities, various limitations, but also so much more to offer, and to watch individuals like with cerebral palsy, for example, be able to ride and not necessarily have full access to their aids, but being able to still ride so beautifully and so effectively, really shaped how I look at working with my riders who don't necessarily have any of those additional setbacks or challenges. And to know that, okay, we might not be able to really access this, but hey, if we play around a bit more with your speech or with your voice or with your energy, you can still have those desired effects. So that super shaped how I work with riders now as well, and influence that in a big way. But one individual introduced me to both of those things, and I look back at it now and I'm like, I mean, my whole life, like my two passions, my income, my joy, like that was all from her introducing me to those. So it would be fun to have her on here and chat about that. I don't know if she knows how much she really shaped my life. So that's how I kind of rekindled that joy with horses. And I now, my gelding, I have a 21-year-old Rocky Mountain gelding, and he served at Sari, the therapeutic riding stable, for just shy of 10 years. And I was assigned his unofficial mom for years. And then when he retired, he came home with me. And so that's Dickens. He'll come up in lots of conversations because he's quite a character, and I owe him my life. And that's the only time you'll ever see me get emotional, is talking about that horse. But he's pretty fabulous and has very much shaped my life. So welcome. It's going to be, this is it. This is what the podcast is going to be about. So you'll get unscripted. Some of the times there will be questions, but I really just have so many cool people in my life who have different experiences with horses and different outlooks on horses. And I love that they're all part of my life, and I can draw from different areas, and I can't wait to have them on here and chat. So let's go back to the pin that I put in on dropping the bomb of my second kidney transplant, because actually there's three. um, so I have quite an extensive medical history, which it shapes everything. It shapes my outlook on everything. It can't help but not influence how I look at things, or what I guard and not guard, and what I'm willing to be open about. So I'm working on being open with more of it. But I was diagnosed with chronic kidney disease when I was 7, and ended up having my first kidney transplant by the time I was 8, and experienced a really awful bout of dialysis in between that. I'm just going to rhyme it off to start. We have it all laid out there. And I also have scoliosis. I have Harrington rods. My spine is fused with Harrington rods. That happened when I was in grade 8. I wore a back brace for 3 years to try and prevent needing that surgery first. And then ended up having the surgery anyways. And then high school, no, it shouldn't be a huge surprise to anyone, developed an eating disorder, mainly out of lack of control of my own body, of my life. And then that did turn into eating disorder, disordered eating, disordered view of my body, because I, from a very young age, obviously have a very complicated relationship with my body. And then second year university, and I needed my second kidney transplant. So this is probably old statistics, but this is the stats that I was given when I was younger, is transplanted kidneys on average tends to really only last about 10 years. I hope that that is a larger number at this point in time, with where we are with medical research. I hope that that's the average is a little longer than that. But I had my second transplant when I was in second year university, and that's when I sought out theory. Was after that as well, looking to get back into some form of connection with horses. And my second kidney transplant had a lot of complications. I ended up getting EBV, which is mono, essentially, from my donor kidney. And for someone with a healthy immune system, mono can suck for a little bit, but your immune system creates the antibodies towards it, and then you're essentially good to go. I had never been exposed to mono. I don't know how. A suppressed immune system, and managed to never pick up mono along the way. But that was a fight to work through with my suppressed immune system. I needed to be treated for that and monitored during that. I ended up with a UTI that turned into a kidney infection pretty quickly. That took a really big hit to my system. Oh yeah, backtrack. Welcome to my history. EBV treatment was complicated. That turned into meningitis. Conveniently forgot that. That was awful. So EBV turned into meningitis. Somewhere in the timeline, UTI turned into a wicked kidney infection. There was also one point playing around with medication that my white blood cells bottomed out, and I ended up with Pseudomonas, which is an infection, and I have a scar on my shin from that infection. Am I forgetting anything in that time period? Seems like enough, right? So that kidney just took alarming amount of hits from the beginning. So not surprising that that didn't last super long. I did end up on dialysis after, I think, 5 or 6 years after that transplant. So I have a dialysis fistula in my left arm, and then was on dialysis for actually a very short amount of time, thank goodness, because that super sucks. Do not recommend. And then I had my third transplant so much sooner than anyone thought I was originally going to, because every time you get a transplant or a blood transfusion, you're exposed to that individual's antibodies, and those you have to find antibodies that you have not been exposed to. So your body is already rejecting those antibodies that it can recognize. So you need antibodies that you have not been exposed to. So it was going to be really, really challenging. And I was told that it would be like likely years and years and years before I was able to get a third kidney transplant. And something was looking out for me because it was not years, it was months. And had my third kidney transplant. It was a little sleepy to wake up to get going, but it did. And was pretty good for a little bit. And then I contracted a virus called CMV, which is, again, kind of in the same family as mono, as like most people have been exposed to it at some point in their childhood. And I somehow managed not to. And contracted CMV from my donor kidney. And that just started an absolute shit show of a year. We worked to treat CMV longer than I was on dialysis. So antivirals after antivirals of more potent medication. We imported some from the States. I was entered into a trial to try other drugs. It just wasn't going away. It was becoming more and more resistant to any medication that we were throwing at it. So there were a few things that I could do to keep it at bay, but I had a PICC line in my right arm for forever. And then March 2020 hit, and hello, COVID. And because I have a compromised immune system, I reacted to COVID a little bit faster than the rest of the world. So I ended up switching my practice to online before most people did, just to protect myself. And because I still had a PICC line in my arm, I had a lot going on. But also in March 2020, because of the significant hit to my system with CMV, I ended up with GBS, Guillain-Barré syndrome, which attacks your nerves kind of attack themselves. They fall apart, for lack of a better term. So it started with me just not feeling great. Then I started having like weird symptoms of falling up the stairs, not so much down the stairs, although that did come later, but falling up the stairs. And then like just kind of lost like all eccentric control. So like I could take a sip of water, but like would slam it down. Like I couldn't control putting it down. It was so freaking weird. And just such a sensation of not feeling steady on my own 2 feet. So I kind of kept my doctor in the loop with, hey, these weird things are starting to happen. Don't know what's going on. Something's definitely not right. So we just kind of monitored it. And then there was a point where I did fall down the stairs. Yeah, another do not recommend. And it was at that point where we're like, hey, something's super wrong. Like this is not okay. So March 2020, I was admitted to the hospital and diagnosed with GBS, and I stayed there for 3 months in the middle of the pandemic, which we'll see if I end up talking about that in more detail. But essentially, I was paralyzed, fairly paralyzed. I could some movements, like I could text, thank God. I could kind of maneuver my laptop, like picking my laptop up to move it somewhere was challenging. Plugging in my laptop was infuriating. I required 2 nurses to assist me to get from bed to bathroom. And there's different variations of GBS and different levels. So some people, like their diaphragm stops working and they end up on a ventilator and they're like completely paralyzed. So if you can call it minor, I had a minor variation of it where I could still kind of walk, kind of supported. But that super sucked. Well, again, we'll see if I end up working through that a little bit more with you guys, but it shifted a lot for me. Some of it in a healthy way, some of it in a super unhealthy way, with a therapy that I'm still working through. But one of the things that I did walk away from that experience with, it didn't cure my eating disorder, but sure as shit put things into perspective of I like who fucking cares? Like if I continue to weigh less than 130 pounds, it so doesn't matter. Um it super doesn't matter, but things that do matter are the things that bring you joy and give you a reason to want to live. Um, and it just so happens that those things for me are iced coffee and pizza. And I do enjoy vegetables and eating well and feeling my body well. I'm just not willing to beat myself up anymore about the rest of it. So that shaped a lot of my outlook on life now, for better and absolutely for worse. Um, yeah, still working my way through some of that. But uh, yeah, my life now, I still am very cautious with illness. Um, I have a home studio and I still wear a mask. It was literally just recently did I lift my mask mandate for clients coming in. So they can not wear a mask as long as they are healthy. And I'm so very spoiled with the amazing people I have coming in to my studio and on my online practice. They get it. If they have the sniffles, they don't come. It's just not worth it. Um, to risk me getting sick and having to deal with all that after I've been through so much. So I'm still quite cautious. I am absolutely a homebody, anyways, by nature. I love working from home. I know a few people throughout the pandemic did not enjoy working from home. I love it. I love that I'm here with my two dogs. I love that I have chunks in the middle of the day that I'm able to go to the barn in the middle of the day versus a 9 to 5 would just not work for me. I can't imagine. I like for anyone who works 9 to 5 and then goes home and then goes to the barn. Good on you. I admire you. I cannot do that. Um, but yeah, I my life that's it summed up in what 20 minutes. Movement, horses, my dog, um, and lack of medical experiences that have absolutely um, ridiculously influenced everything that I do, whether I realize it or not. But just put life into perspective of you have to find things that bring you joy, and you only get to do this life thing once. And what do you want to spend your time doing? So yes, feel your bodies well, move your bodies well, but also give yourself some compassion and some forgiveness and acknowledge that there's more out there than just fitness and eating well. So that's me in a nutshell. My first guest I'm hoping is someone who is very near and dear to me, and it's super her fault for this. So I'm like, if I'm doing this, I'm dragging you in with me. Um, but yeah, there's your little taste of me and some of the things that I um hold as a passion and feel like I might have some different insight to offer. Um, because yeah, there's quite a few experiences in there: business owner, horse lover, animal lover, period. And a lack of medical trauma. But thank you so much for those of you who took the time to listen. And I really, really look forward to connecting with all of you and sharing this experience with you. Until next time, take care.